Happy National Signing Day, folks. Welcome into the DGD Podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds got a special guest tonight. He's been on the show, but under a new brand now. SEC Unfiltered's founder, Chris Phillips. Man, how's it going?
Rob, what's up, man? Appreciate you having me on. Yeah, it feels good to hear you say that, and we're having a lot of fun, man, with the content. Talking little dogs today. Happy National Signing Day, by the way, to you and all the folks tuned in. But appreciate you having me on, man. It's a pleasure to chat with you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have you in, man. You know, I've been here multiple times now, so it's always fun to have you in. And it's weird because we're so used to talking South Carolina now. We just open it up to SEC. I'm not even mad about it.
I look at it as it's just 14 times and soon to be 16 times the fun, man. It gives us that much more content, so it's a blast.
I'll counter that to say 15 because Vanderbilt. I mean.
Fair enough.
Unless you're hold on. Opening day.
I got love. Listen, I got love for Clark Lee and company. That Vandy football sent us a helmet and a football, and I'm hoping some other schools will do that. But
got it like that.
Yeah, we got some early love from the Commodores, so I got a bit of a soft spot for them. But you're right; it's about to be baseball season, which means it's Vandy season.
Boy, opening day, whew, man, yeah, oh man,
next Friday. Hard to believe.
No, that's crazy, man. I'm looking forward. Before we get into more into stuff, but I'm ready to see what Charlie Condon does. I think he's primed for a good year.
We'll leave it there. He's going to be a star, man. I'm actually eyeing to share with you and the folks tuned in. I'm actually eyeing opening weekend. We may venture to Athens. I don't know if it'll be opening weekend, but at some point. But I'm pretty close to Athens these days, so I might slide down there and watch Charlie Condon and the boys on opening weekend.
Well, you do that, and you know the potent potables will flow. Simple as that. No, but I do want to bring that up to you, right? Let's talk some SEC stuff. Sanford Stadium 2024 beer sales will be for everyone now. I've said my piece. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm curious, real quick, Rob. Your piece in regard, are you pro or against? Is it positive or negative? I'm curious.
I see both sides, but I'm more for it. I think the revenue that comes from it. Yeah, I think the revenue will come from. And honestly, I think thinking economically, I say that.
Yeah.
There's always going to have the bad apples. Can't let that spoil the whole fun for everybody. But yeah, I would expect there to be a ton of sales. I mean, we've got home games this year. But at the same time, like if that moves forward, just imagine beer sales for everybody when you're playing or when you're hosting Oklahoma, you're hosting Texas for the first time, you're hosting Bama coming to town. Like all those matchups, man, especially just going to be nuts.
Well, it's going to be a great opportunity, Rob, I think, for NIL, right? I think you're seeing some others. I think Iowa State has a beer. South Carolina has a beer.
Georgia's got their own vodka.
They've got their own vodka. There you go. Even better, right? Even better. To your point about beer sales in the stadium, though, I'm not sure I thought that dog fans could get rowdier, but I think we're probably about to see that. But let's be fair, though, right? We're going to talk about bunches of people are going to be drinking in the stadium that weren't. They were drinking in the stadium, whether it was mini bottles, whether it was something else. But it brings a whole new meaning to who's that walking down the track, and the song goes, a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan, and it just brings new meaning to the song, So, no, listen, I mean, I think it's great. I think you should be able to go to a ball game and enjoy a beer, enjoy a drink if you want to, and I'm sure, again, they'll get creative with the NIL initiatives and stuff like that. But, I mean, I'm surprised it took Georgia this long. I mean, I feel like this is something we were talking about like 4 or 5 years ago that schools were doing, and so I think it's a good move. I think it makes sense. I know it's a college game, but adults go to the game, and if you want to enjoy a beverage, I think you should be able to.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I guess like the economics of being around college students and everything, it's going to be more security and all that. But to be fair, like you said, I mean, we've seen certain schools in the SEC, implement this, and till it seems like some good success, right? Extra revenue coming in on game days and stuff like that, and it's not going to. It's not like it's going to hinder the game day environment in Athens as well. I mean,
I'm sure they're really concerned with underage drinking. If you go downtown Athens, there's none of that going on, right? No underage drinking ever happening in downtown or like no.
Chris, Athens, Clark County just got real randy here, and that boy just can't help you there. That's just what happened. They heard that and they're like, "Oh,
Clark County PD stays busy, my friend. They stay busy."
Nah, Florida is nowhere close to Georgia's biggest rival, man. I can't make that up. But no, I
And
thought.
I'm not trying to make enemies, by the way, with the dog folks because I got nothing but love for Georgia and everything. But it's all in
No,
good
it's
fun.
dude. The funny
But I
thing
was going to
is,
say it's all in good fun. I'm sure
oh
you saw
god,
all the responses to Carson Beck getting the what was it, the Lambo he got, or
yeah, the Lambo truck, man.
yeah, and it was there. I saw some folks with some great responses. That Clark County PD response, and it was like they had a souped up cop car. I
No,
mean, you gotta kind of laugh. You just gotta laugh it off. It is what it is. Like those
Roscoe
jokes
P.
are gonna come forever.
Roscoe P. Coltrane coming out of retirement.
Right. So,
but no, it's
uh,
that which for what that's worth though, man. Like, welcome to the world of NIL, right? That's
yeah,
a full display. But listen, to be fair, my man came into college and earned that. Like, right? It's legal.
I'd rather see a guy like Carson Beck getting that type of deal. And I think people don't realize too, like Carson Beck didn't go spend $200,000 on a car. He didn't buy a
No,
car. It's
he
either
better
being,
at least that.
yeah, it's either being leased or they're providing him the car via some sort of deal or what have you. But I mean, he didn't go buy the car cash. But if there's going to be guys out there that get rewarded in that way, a guy like Carson Beck and those kind of players, I think it's well deserved, man. A guy that stuck around, he could have went somewhere else. You know, he didn't have to sit behind and wait his turn. He did. And oh, by the way, when he got his opportunity, I mean, I think he was one of the most underrated players, and it's hard to believe he was underrated, but I think he was underappreciated because I feel like Georgia, and I mean, I know you felt this, but Georgia all year last year it was never about, are you better than the opponent you're playing every Saturday? Are you the best team in the SEC East? Georgia was measured up against every single Saturday, week in, week out. Are you good enough to win 3 national championships in a row? And when you're measured against something of that magnitude weekly, you can't do enough. And so it seemed like everything Carson Beck did, really that entire Georgia team did, was swept under the rug. Georgia can't win by enough. They're supposed to win every game by 50. And all Carson Beck did was have one of the best seasons in Georgia history. And Mike Bobo obviously dialed it up as OC. So, I think Carson Beck, if you want to put 100 on him to win the Heisman in 24, I think that's as good a bet as any, to be honest with you.
No, you're not wrong there, man. I think it's very interesting as we welcome Keon in the building. Keon,
what's up, Keon?
What's going on? What's going on, guys? How y'all doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Glad of you to join us. No, so
Chris, I came in at the right time. I'm not gonna lie to you.
you talk about Carshawn Beck. It's a wrap.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I definitely agree with you. So many people did try to sweep under the rug everything that Carson Beck did this year. I mean, you really look at his stats. I mean, he was completely balling from start to finish. Plus, when you really think about it, he was 187 yards away from breaking the single season passing yards.
So, was that Stetson set that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you think about too what Mike Bobo did. I know there's there's a couple fan bases in the SEC, Auburn, South Carolina in particular, that like to rag Bobo. And I mean, we've all heard it, but I mean, Georgia, I believe, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but at least at some point in the season, I read that Georgia's highest points per game total, the last time it was higher or as high as it was this year, was 2014. And Mike Bobo was the OC. So
yeah, it was his last year as OC.
Right.
Yeah.
He knows how to dial it up, at least in Athens. You have to give him that. So, I think Mike Bobo was one of the best OCs in the conference, if not the best. And
one of the things, Chris, and this is my opinion, if Keon, you want to speak on this too, I think with Bobo, he gets the bad rap, and it's the same thing with Will Muschamp, right? As you're a Gamecock fan for what it's worth, but the feelings of Muschamp as a head coach, it resonates through your fan base. Right, it resonates through the Gamecock fan base. I get it, but as a coordinator, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Right. I think over time we've seen Mike Bobo and Will Muschamp, excellent offensive and defensive minds. Coordinators, excellent. Head coaches, not so much, and it's not for everybody. So when you go to a situation where you've got, I think what makes Bobo tick even better, in my opinion, than his first stint, Chris, Kirby's willingness to be a little bit more aggressive. I thought Rick was very conservative at times. That's one. Two, Chris, if I told you during his first stint from 07 to 14, the defensive coordinators that he worked with were Todd Grantham, Willie Martinez, and 1 year of Jeremy Pruitt, how would that make you feel?
See, it sounds like Mike Bobo was putting the team on his back. We'll put it that way. So,
well, I did it, dude. We did a show probably about 6 months to a year ago at this point when Bobo got hired, and the stats of the 2013 season for Georgia, dude, our defense gave up 29 points per game that season.
Yeah, they gave up everything.
Compare that to what Kirby's defenses are giving up right now, Chris. And this gives him the flexibility and I guess you can say more of the freedom to be more aggressive at times. And it pays off, but we're also very efficient too. Carson this year, he blew me away with his care of the football. Very meticulated, did not turn the ball over much at all. And for a first-year starter, I think that is probably one of the more impressive things.
I think another impressive thing, even when you look at his interceptions, he had a total of 6. When you go back and look at it, out of the 6, 4 of those interceptions came off of a tip ball. So which means I'm throwing this directly to you. You're just not catching it. So I think that's something else to look at as well, especially when you look at the way how he battled back in the Auburn game. From that point on, you really saw Carson Beck begin to take a whole nother step. And from then, it just seemed as if Georgia was just completely steamrolling from that point forward. And to think that that same guy is coming back, plus you add Trevor Etienne to the offense, Brett Thorson, I'm sorry, you're going to be on the sidelines a lot this season.
Kendall Jenner, by the way, they can go on their date on the sideline. Okay, let him know.
I mean, now he'll have time. Shout out to Brett Thorson.
Basically like courtside seats, just, sideline view. But no, Chris, I want to ask you this, man. So obviously with signing day, Texas A&M arguably had the best day of all the SEC, keeping Terry Bussey. Listen, Georgia came in late with Dante Williams, but at the same time, obviously, I think it was a big threat from LSU. Want to get your thoughts on Terry Bussey. Me personally, I think, obviously a 5-star athlete. I think he's going to play on the defense at A&M. Listen, I think that is huge for Mike Elko, especially as a first-year head coach there. Considering his 2 years at Duke, the track record there for success is going to be a little bit more pressure on him. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, with Terry Bussey's situation, because I thought that was probably the biggest news of the day for signing day for sure.
And guys, to your point, by the way, I admittedly until about late yesterday forgot it was National Signing Day, because I think we'd all agree that the real signing day now is the one in December, and they really need to consolidate this signing day to one day, because I mean, what we have today, 99% of the guys are signed. That was the one big thing, right, with Terry Bussey, and then maybe Dominic McKinley with LSU and just making sure he was going to sign his paperwork. But that wasn't a whole lot of drama. Everybody else pretty much, was done. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot happening, but big win for Mike Elko early. You mentioned that was one you had to lock down with all the changeover. And I know they had a great portal haul. I think Mike Elko has actually done a really good job there thus far. But Bussey was that guy that was sort of the exclamation mark of your first signing class. And, obviously, man, you look at the tape, 5-star athlete, does it all. I think he's going to play defense as well. I think it'll be at defensive back. But, I mean, they I heard somebody talking today, the wide receivers coach and the defensive backs coach are both recruiting this kid. So, looking at Travis Hunter at Colorado, it's always great to have a guy like that who can do a little bit of everything. And it's just a true weapon on a football field, right? It's an embarrassment of riches type of feeling. But, I mean, guys, that leads me to this too. We talked about the signing day and the recruiting calendar and the calendar for coaches. They got to figure this thing out, man, because I was told today, I didn't even realize the early signing day, or really what's National Signing Day now, that is going to fall on the Wednesday of the week of the first round of the college ball playoff. So, imagine, and I know Georgia probably going to have a bye, but let's just say they didn't. You got a game on Saturday. You're trying to sign your class on Wednesday. I mean, it just makes no sense, man. I mean, it makes no sense. So,
Chris,
my bad. I just wanted to say real quick, I definitely get the complete frustration with that, because now you have coaches that are about to be running around like chickens with their head cut off, trying to balance out, okay, so are you locked in? Cool. Here's the game plan. Cool. Don't like this. Let me change this to the game plan. What do you mean that you're possibly looking other places? Like it's It's too much stuff happening in such a short time
The
frame.
hardest part, Keon, the hardest part is coaches are constantly on the phone with agents of their current players.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of remedies or a lot of issues that could be fixed, and I think need to be fixed and addressed. We'll see. I think this joint committee, the advisory committee with the Big Ten and the SEC, I'm very intrigued to see how that transpires. I think it has potential if you can regulate it, but deep down, there's this feeling that like you're about to create this super conference, like the super, right? Like you're about to like
Absolutely.
succeed. But ultimately, listen, for what it's worth, they did mention that they do stand behind the NCAA. They just want to guide it to where things can get smoothed out. And if they can do that, I think Greg Sankey is the one commissioner of each conference in the NCAA, like the whole country. You have to look at Greg Sankey as the guy that can lead that charge. I mean, we saw it through COVID. There's no reason for me to believe that he can't address things in that manner to get us into a situation. I mean, what was it? The Boston College head coach that went to Green Bay basically literally said, "I'm tired of this shit.
Yeah,
I'm gone."
Well,
and he was doing good at Boston College for what it's worth. That's the interesting thing. Like, Saban, I think Saban isn't going to fall into this as much. I think you're going to look at guys like potentially like down the road, if things don't get addressed and don't get fixed, you're going to look at Kirby Smart lasted nowhere near as long as Saban did. You're going to look at some key guys. I think Dabo, all these guys potentially could just walk away. Just walk away.
Yeah, I mean, I just think when it comes to that, I think the marriage affair between the SEC and the Big Ten, I think that really sets a big standard on the way on how they kind of want things to go moving forward. I mean, because you got to keep in mind, we're talking about the two biggest conferences, the two best conferences in this game. When you have them locking arms and understanding that, hey, this is how we want to really get things to go. You even had Greg Sankey. I don't know if y'all saw it today on Paul Feinbaum, but he had Greg Sankey on, and he even talked about, the different levels of adversity and just challenges and different things he had to overcome, even when it came being a commissioner during the pandemic, during the COVID crisis. And it really just shows that I think even between these two conferences, Sankey is definitely leading the charge and leading the board. But I do definitely agree. If things don't get better, things continue to go left field, you're going to see more prominent coaches leaving. I mean, Josh Pate even talked about that the other day on his podcast. Like, there's so many different things that are happening here, and there's so many. Even if you're looking at the NFL, I don't know if you're an NFL guy, if you have an NFL team, but I do, and I'm going to tell you, I'm noticing that there's more and more younger coaches that are getting these head coaching spots, that are getting these OC roles, guys that are coming from college, and they're just tired of the nonsense.
Yeah, and I think to your point about with the SEC Big Ten coming together, and I'm not going to use the word alliance because that's a dirty word in college football since a couple years ago what happened with the ACC Big Ten stuff. But anyways, them coming together, I mean, I think number one, you make a great point. Greg Sankey is the best possible leader to lead the SEC into these, this new territory and these new ventures and lead, college football really into the future. But I mean, I think it's the beginning, no doubt. I think it's the beginning of the separation of the SEC, maybe the Big Ten along with them, a separation from the NCAA. I mean, we're seeing the Tennessee and Virginia versus the NCAA thing. We're seeing other stuff happening with the transfer portal. And it's like at some point where I think we're going to be asking ourselves, what role does the NCAA, at least for football, really serve? I mean, what are they doing other than being in the way of what college football is trying to do? Now, to the point of the coaches, I 110% agree with you. I think there's going to be guys, especially coaches that were in college football before the portal and NIL. I don't think you're ever going to fall out of love with coaching. You can fall out of love with the process, right? I said this about Nick Saban. I'd say it about many others. You never stop loving the end result. What you do stop loving is the process. You stop loving the work and the effort that it takes to get to that end result. And so a lot of these guys didn't sign up for the process, including having to re-recruit your own roster every single year, needed a $10 million salary cap to keep them intact, and having to go recruit the transfer portal and do high school recruiting and never basically take a day off. So, I mean, I will not be surprised at all if you see some guys bolt, if you see some guys hang it up, to echo what Josh Pate said, if you see some, fade into, the background for a couple of years and then reemerge when college football corrects itself. Because I think there's some guys out there. I think there's some younger coaches. I think maybe Kirby's one of them that, they love the hustle and bustle of this. Like, they can't get enough of it, man. They love waking up at 5 a.m. and getting to the facility and staying there till 10 at night. And that's great. And a lot of guys love that. Some guys don't. Some guys just want to coach ball. They have a wife. They have kids. They want to spend time with family. And, I mean, they just don't want to have to deal, like you mentioned, with the nonsense or the headache. So I think it's going to be a case-by-case basis. I don't think we can, we can sit here and certainly speculate, but it can be somewhat difficult to predict who's going to bolt. But I think you'd be naive to think that this isn't going to affect other coaches, and we won't see more of this in the near future of coaches jumping to the NFL, or maybe even just taking a step back entirely.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, man. I think, for what it's worth, though, I do want to kind of ask your opinion on this. With it being signing day, now that the 2024 class is done, right? I would say it's pretty much nail in the coffin. From your thoughts, who are obviously I look at Georgia as being a winner, right? Just in this case, but I want to look at your winners. Who surprised you? What were your initial thoughts from some of these SEC programs? If I'm not mistaken, I think On3 had 6 SEC programs in the top 10. I don't think that should surprise anybody here that's at least keeps up with SEC football. But from your perspective, let's hear. I want to hear your thoughts on the National Signing Day around the SEC. Who were some winners? Who were some losers? What stood out to you?
And guys, I've gotten to the point when it comes to the recruiting rankings, I don't even really look at the national recruiting rankings anymore, because you can be 14th in the SEC but be 25th overall nationally. So it's almost like the national rating is like this ego stroke, right? Like, man, we had another top 20 class. It's like, yeah, but you finished 12th in the league. Are you making any progress? Are you really ascending as a program? And like, that's not to tell the schools that finish 12 through 16 that like you have no chance. But typically the schools that are finishing bottom half, they're in the bottom half, and the ones finishing top half are in the top half, right? The teams with the best players win the most games. So when you talk about winners and losers from the 2024 signing class, I mean, obviously you mentioned, man, Georgia, Alabama, you got to start there. I thought Georgia, both those schools, I thought did a great job addressing their needs, getting high-end talent. I mean, you look at the classes and just the overall ratings, and it speaks for itself, right? We talked today on my show about, which freshman is most set to be a breakout star and a household name by season's end. It's really fun going through Georgia and Alabama's recruiting classes, because it's kind of like just take your pick, right? I mean, I don't think any of those guys would be a bad bet. I thought Hugh Freeze at Auburn did a good job addressing needs, adding Cam Coleman at wide receiver. I thought that was huge. I thought Kalen DeBoer did a good job. I know I just taught Alabama, but Bama's situation is a little bit different. To finish as highly as they did, to hold on to Ryan Williams, get him to sign, for Kalen DeBoer to establish that relationship so early on in his tenure and get him back, I mean, that was obviously huge. I thought LSU and Brian Kelly did a good job. Losers, I mean, I think you have to start with the Florida Gators, man. I mean, Florida, and I'm sure you guys are shedding a tear hearing that, but I mean, Florida was a team, top 5 recruiting class, and you get to signing day and they puked all over themselves. There's no other way to put it. There's just, blue chip Billy turned into Sunbelt Billy overnight when it came to signing day, unfortunately, for the Gators. So, and then you lose Trevor Etienne as well. So, I mean, they're struggling, they're suffering. It's I know dog fans are having a fun time with it, but I mean, you got to look at Florida was a big loser. You mentioned Texas A&M. I think because of holding on to Bussey, I think they were winners, obviously, and they did most of their work in the transfer portal. And see, that's the interesting thing too, man, is like, you look at Mizzou down, and I'm looking at the SEC ratings on 24/7. You look at Mizzou at 10, Ole Miss at 11. Those classes aren't flashy necessarily. I mean, they're still good players, right? I mean, Ole Miss,
good ones. Oh yeah,
right. But the transfer portal is where they did a lot of their work, especially Ole Miss, right? So it's like, overall, I think when we talk about signing day and signing classes, I think we have to include the portal in that conversation, because if you only talk about the high school prospects and the high school signings, it's only half of the convo, right? So Ole Miss were winners. I think South Carolina was somewhat winners from the standpoint of I think they addressed their needs. I'm not sure they got major
Dylan Stewart, right?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not sure they got major star power in the class outside of Dylan Stewart, but I think when you sign a lot of guys in the trenches, when you sign a bunch of offensive linemen, and Georgia knows this too, and it's fun to look at like the size of those guys, right? The Dogs signed some absolute beasts, but it doesn't pop quite as much because they're big uglies, right? They don't get the credit necessarily. It's not flat. We're not going to go watch the highlight tape of the offensive line
until it becomes a problem.
Until it becomes a problem, right? So I mean that was a big win, I thought, for South Carolina, the way they addressed their needs there. I mean, I thought Arkansas was a loser. You look at them, 15th in the SEC, and I mean, it's just, I know they got they got Taylon Green from Boise State, but I wonder Sam Pittman. I know his tenure there in Fayetteville's on life support. So there were tons of winners and losers, man. But I mean, I think with recruiting, listen, I'm somebody I call it as I see it, right? I'm not employed by 24/7 or On3 or Rivals. I don't have to spin it and tell you that every 3-star is a diamond in the rough or that every walk-on is going to be the next Rudy. So listen, if you're down there, the bottom third of the league, you better make sure your coaching staff can develop the heck out of some guys because you're going to have to, because the rest of the teams in the SEC, they got Jimmys and Joes that are going to perform. So,
yeah, I definitely agree in a lot of instances, especially when you're looking at really just the recruiting classes. I do think in a lot of cases you do have to start putting the recruiting classes along with the transfer portal together and then using that as a grade, because you can be third just off of being on the trail when it comes to bringing in high school recruits, but you're first in the conference for being in the portal. Mm-hmm. Are you still 3 or are you at least 2 if not 1? You see what I'm saying? So, and I just think when it comes to that, those players are going to mesh. So I think it's best, like, moving forward. And of course, the likelihood of them taking this and actually doing it, slim to none. But I do think like that would be very beneficial when it comes to breaking everything down, because it's not like they're going to 2 different teams, mm-hmm. right? Like,
and to your point, Keon, it's really, the question I think we're asking is, who did the best job at talent acquisition this offseason? I mean, that's no matter how you got them, portal, signing, who did the best job at talent acquisition? I think Georgia, Bama are the obvious answers, but like I'd go Ole Miss. I mean, I think when you look at the SEC
who
stars they signed, that's what I'm saying. Like when you look at the proven SEC stars they signed, it's hard to argue anybody other.
Because that's instant. Right. That's instant playmaking ability.
The biggest thing from there is just making sure guys gel. That'll be the big question for Ole Miss. Yeah. Do all these pieces from all these schools come together and gel? That's probably the question for like a Trevor Etienne. Hey, how does he match? Although that's just one player. But I mean, whenever you bring those portal guys in, it's like, hey, let's make sure they buy into our culture, right? They're going to fit in. They're going to fit into the system. They're going to buy in, whatever. But I mean, mm-hmm. Yep. When you just look purely talent on paper, what Lane Kiffin and company did, it's really hard.
It's nuts. Yeah. Absolutely. Chris, I want to bring this point up to you. Yeah. You made your point about basically the conference and comparing it nationally. If I told you 12 out of the top 25 was SEC, but 26th was also SEC, and that was Mississippi State at 26. So. Yeah, your point is proven.
I mean, it's I mean, that's why I say, man, like when I look at the recruiting rankings, and maybe I should have realized this a long time ago, but I had this epiphany like over last couple of months where it's just like I always found myself looking at the top 25, and I'm like, what is the point in doing that? Like, what? It doesn't matter if you're 20th, if you're 14th.
Look at your conference rankings.
Like, I mean, that's just the reality of it. So, I mean, listen, man, it's about Jimmys and Joes, and I always tell people this: if you're somebody listening and you're wanting to go deep dive on recruiting or whatever, and you'll hear a lot of people say stars don't matter. The only people that say stars don't matter are fans of schools that stink at recruiting. Prove me wrong. Tell me I'm wrong, right? And the teams with the highest rated stars, best players, they win the most games. It's just proven. It's statistically proven. You can love it. You can hate it. You can discard that info. But at the end of the day, blue chip ratio is a thing for a reason. And now the portal plays a role. But you typically know going into a season what type of ball club you got.
Facts. Chris, for those that are interested in finding your work at SEC Unfiltered and beyond, where can they find your work, buddy?
Yeah, so SEC Unfiltered, man, we're on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your content, we are there. We drop daily content on YouTube, SEC Unfiltered on YouTube. We actually dropped a piece today talking about Kirk Herbstreit recruiting against the Georgia Bulldogs, and a lot of Georgia fans were chiming in on that. And that was my piece of content, because we got a couple folks that do video work, and I just don't understand what Kirk Herbstreit's got against Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. So highly encourage all the Georgia folks to check that out. And then, of course, the podcast drops iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll go live occasionally if it's breaking news, or we're going to start going live like every Sunday during baseball season to recap the weekend. We're going to be doing a bunch of stuff when SEC tournament comes up, all that good stuff. So, again, everywhere you get your content, SEC Unfiltered is there. And I'm on social media, CPhilly19, where you can find a lot of my takes as well.
So just, guys, if you're listening or if you're watching, not just football over there at SEC Unfiltered. They hit year round just like we do.
Football, baseball, basketball, and SECUnfiltered.com, by the way. I want to plug the website because we love the website. We'll have merch coming soon, but we got a great team of contributors that we're building out right now. We've got written content, video, audio, social media, everything in between. So, and like I mentioned, man, for anybody listening who wants to give SECU a warm welcome, I'm pretty sure next weekend we'll be there for opening weekend, maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday, but one of those days. Want to go check out Charlie Condon and what the Dogs have this year. So you're probably going to be next weekend. If the weather cooperates, Foley Field, calling my name.
True. You're going to be at Media Days next year? I think it's going to be in Dallas.
Yeah, so I was there last year in Nashville. The plan is to be there yet again in Dallas. So that's that is the game plan. That is the game plan. Yeah,
Chris, that's his stomping grounds, by the way.
Yeah, okay. Hopefully I'll see you there.
Yeah, that is the game plan, man. So let's do it. Let's get up in Dallas.
Chris, man, Chris, thanks again for coming on, buddy. It's always a pleasure to have you on. You're more than welcome anytime.
No, I appreciate you guys, man. Grateful for the opportunity. Keon, Rob, y'all are great, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Keon.
Yeah.
It's time, sir.
Yo, can we actually talk about that whole Kirk Street?
I think we may, but let's do this first. Hold on. Save your piece, Keon. Save your piece. Guys, we're going to hit both sponsors, okay? We're going to hit both sponsors.
Wait. Let me take my shoe off.
Oh, you go ahead and take your shoe off if that's – guys, the show, y'all know who it's brought to you by. First things first, Apotheos Roastery. Best coffee in the business.
Best coffee in the nation.
Yes, in the world. You've got DGDpodcast.com. You can support Apotheos there. Use code CCC at checkout when you get your Apotheos coffee. That applies for free shipping regardless of the cost of your order. And 20% of everything goes to the Classic City Collective because they are the official coffee and cold brew partner of the Classic City Collective. Guys, speaking of Classic City Collective, we are implementing something new. And we're going to use Alumni Hall to do it. So go to our website, dgdpodcast.com, or use the link in the description below. Use it. You'll see it. It has to be through that.
Yep.
What we're going to do is any sale that you make, anyone, however big it is, a percentage of that we will send to the Classic City Collective ourselves on behalf of you for going and supporting and getting your gear from Alumni Hall. So
to help support the Dogs. Keep that in mind. It's all to support the Dogs.
Yep. So make sure to use the link in the description, or if you forget the link, if you can't find it, hey, just hit our website up. It's all the Alumni Hall links are there. So there you go. Let me see that thing again. Oh my God.
Type of stuff make you want to bark. Oh Lord.
Yeah, about that. Oh, Keon. All right. Let's jump into this before we hit our power rankings, buddy. Let's do this first. Kirk Herbstreit apparently, I'm gonna paraphrase this because I haven't seen it and I don't really care. Apparently, Dylan Raiola's father was talking in an interview, and it got brought up that Kirk Herbstreit had mentioned to him to say that Dylan should flip to Nebraska. You have your piece on this. What do you have to feel about it, Keon? Because apparently you have some thoughts on this.
So here's my question, and this should just be a question, right? So a public figure has that much input on what he wants you to do with your son. You saying he brought it up? Sounds crazy to me. And if that is the case, right? So you telling me Kurt Herbstreit is also getting involved with other players' recruitments, or is it just Dylan Raiola's?
I don't know. For me personally, I look at it this way. If I'm a Georgia fan, I'm honestly not sweating it because
I'm not either, but it's just that's weird to me because it's like you've never heard of any of him doing this with literally any other player.
Yeah. Listen, Georgia fans, if you're listening or you're watching on this, let us know what your thoughts are on this. But I'm going to give you mine. I couldn't care less. I really couldn't. When I look at it, right? Like, is he a good athlete or a good quarterback? Absolutely. Not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. But Puglisi will be just fine. We will be just fine. Georgia will be just fine. Listen, he's going to have a path, to fulfill help, to build off of a legacy with the Raiola name at Nebraska. He's going to get an easier path to playing time. You can't be mad at it, right? Mm-hmm. It's just the coincidence of hearing Herbstreit say stuff about it. Again, I really could care less. I really could. I mean, listen, it's not like his flip to Nebraska took a lot of shit away from us because it didn't happen. Yeah. It's whatever. But I'm done with that for the time being. Keon, let's hit to the meat and potatoes, buddy. Power ranking the SEC.
Yep.
Now it is February 7th, and we have to make sure that people understand this because I know there's going to be clips of this going around. I know it. And that's okay. Make sure you clip this part too. Hey, we know it's February. We know shit ain't finished yet. But we're doing it right now. We just want to do this right now. It's going to be fun. I think it'll be fun. Keon, how do we want to go about this? Do we want to go 1 to 16? Do we want to go to 16 to 1? Or do we want to just piece it on how we feel?
Let's go from 16 to 1.
Let's go 16 to 1. Okay. Well, Keon, I think it's pretty safe to say that we have a unanimous 16.
Yeah.
And that's Vanderbilt, right? Yep. 16 has to be Vanderbilt. There's no other – listen, there's really no other way.
Well,
what?
Well, are we dropping a record with this?
No, we're just doing the power rankings, buddy. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah,
I agree.
So, and listen, if we have a split, so be it. This is what we would do. Okay. So, by the way, this is all live. This hasn't really been thought up or anything like that. So we're doing this like on the spot.
Also, to be clear, I don't even know what teams he's throwing out. So we're going to discuss this as we go.
Yeah, we're going to have discussions, and that's okay. Keon, so I think we said Vanderbilt both, right?
Mm-hmm.
For 16, but for 15, who do you have?
Florida.
Ooh. I've got Mississippi State.
I think Mississippi State wins one more game than Florida.
Well, it's just the power rankings right now, right? We know how it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
For me, Mississippi State, the Arnett situation was kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. You didn't really get a chance to do anything. Maybe they saw something that we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But now you got Levy as a head coach. I think it may be his first time head coach. So a lot of that is just really unknown. So that's why I have Mississippi State at 15. Who would you have, or excuse me, why do you have Florida at 15?
I think they're going to be, if not the worst team in the conference, the second worst team in the conference.
So these are almost like predictions, and it feels like.
Yeah.
So this is more of a power ranking / prediction too, if you would. Kind of a combo. It's hybrid. 14. I've got Arkansas.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100%.
Sorry, Pit Boss, but I would love to have you back as an offensive line coach, unless you choose. You may choose to retire. But you, like Chris said earlier, that head coaching job is on life support, and it doesn't make it. And it didn't make it easier with their schedule either. With their schedule, yeah, it's just rough. But Arkansas, I just don't know. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. At 13, Keon, I'll let you go first. I said Arkansas, so I'll let you go. Who is your 13?
I might say Auburn.
Are you sure you want to lock that in?
No, because I'm just kind of.
I'm surprised you haven't put Mississippi State there.
Oh, wait. I thought we said that already. Okay, yeah.
No, I didn't. No, Mississippi State was my 15. You put Florida at your 15.
Yeah, give me Mississippi State.
Okay.
Ooh, wait. I want to put Mississippi State right in Arkansas spot.
You want to swap? Okay.
Yeah, so Arkansas's here. Yeah.
Okay, so I got you. And you want Arkansas at 13.
Yes.
I have Florida at 13. I've got Florida, and you can say what you want. They are depleted. They have a horrible schedule, but as it stands right now, they had their class, but it got depleted. They've got DJ Lagway, right? That's Florida's saving grace for this class. They got LJ McCray too, so I'm not going to forget about LJ McCray. But in regards to the on the field roster right now, I'm not necessarily sold on Florida whatsoever. And their schedule moving ahead, I don't think it matters who you bring in. It's just going to be I wouldn't say impossible. It's going to be really tough to navigate. Really tough. Keon, at my 12, I'm going South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Because I have no faith in Beamer ball anymore.
No.
Listen, Spencer Rattler's gone. You've got Lenore Sellers. That might be a name that we might have to revert back to at some point. They feel confident in what they got with him.
100%. I feel like I already know what your 11 is.
I'll let you go for your 11 first.
My 11 is Kentucky.
Damn.
Yeah. Was that your 11?
I was surprised.
Actually, wait a second. Yeah. Whoa.
I can see why you have them there because of Liam Cohen being gone too. That's going to be very interesting.
But see, they made moves in the portal, which is why I'm actually going to retract them from being my 11. I'm going to put Texas A&M there.
Texas A&M. Damn. I think you're selling A&M a little bit. Let me think here. See, no. Yeah, I mean, I might roll with Kentucky there at the 11.
You see what I'm saying?
No,
it's one of those ones where I'm like, it could be Kentucky. I think Kentucky and Texas A&M are right next to each other.
I mean, you might be right. I think the key is this. Liam Cohen, to me, with Brock Vandegrift, that would have been. I think that would have been a good pairing. And now you're having to restart over from scratch. Like, so what is it going to look like for an offense? Stoops is a good head coach. I'm not knocking this.
Right.
But you still got a rough schedule, and you're having to replace a proven OC that worked for Stoops. Like, we saw how much success they had with Liam Cohen there. You can't knock that, and you can't take that away. But now that he's gone to the NFL, it's an X factor. Like, they did bring in some good talent. They got Deion Walker still. They got Barry Brown. They brought in Brock Vandegrift, right? Pop Johnson. Got all these guys. The talent's there. The question is, will the coaching hold up? And that's why I've got them at my 11.
Yeah, I'll put them at 11. Because I had a feeling. But see, even then, I could say with the moves that they've made in the portal, from not only picking up a Brock Vandegrift, but they also picked up Macklin from my alma mater. Shout out UNT, Scrappy Eagle. So kid was impressive. So I think that's going to work out very well for them.
So you've got Kentucky at your 10, correct?
No, I have.
No, you have Texas A&M at your 11 spot.
I'm gonna flip Texas A&M. So Kentucky is 11. Texas A&M is 10. 100%.
Okay. So we've got both have Kentucky at 11.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the flip flop. Listen, this is the perks. Listen, we told you ahead of time, folks. This is doing it live, guys. This is doing it live.
100%. 100%.
So you've got Texas A&M at your 10. I've got. I think I think this might be the first hot take.
Okay.
I've got Auburn at 10, and it stems around the quarterback play.
See.
And the reason why I say that is because I don't trust Peyton Thorne. Now, I'm not going to knock Auburn because they did bring in good receivers. It'll be interesting to see, but I always worry about, and for right now, I'm worried about the trenches with them, how that progress. But I don't trust Peyton Thorne. I would trust him over a quarterback at A&M in I think it was Weigman, I believe.
Yeah, Connor Weigman. I hate the fact that I'm agreeing with you now, because now that I think about it, I completely forgot about Auburn.
I think Auburn. Listen, I think you talked about Kentucky, Texas, and A&M. I think Auburn and A&M could be interchangeable.
I think so.
Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I do. I think so too, because although I think, the downsides, they could both be down there, but if things really work out for them, I mean, with those 2 5-star wide receivers, you have to understand that offense is going to be firing on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be crazy to not think about it.
I mean, they've got talent, dude.
They really do.
With the departure of Jimbo, right? You lost some guys. Now, on the defensive side, you did lose some guys, but you also retained some guys. And Elko, again, I trust his track record. It's just, what is it going to look like in the SEC? We saw what he did at Duke in 2 years. Had Duke winning 9 games off the rip.
100%.
So, and also we saw what happened with Riley Leonard. If he wasn't hurt, if he didn't get hurt, listen, who knows what could have happened there. So I'm gonna give, for what it's worth, I got Auburn at my 10 spot. To your number 9, I have a feeling you're about to put Auburn at your number 9.
No. Well, yeah, because those 2 are, I feel like they are interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
I could see a world where Auburn has a better record than A&M, to be all the way honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think if things begin to fall apart at the seams when it comes to their offensive line, Connor Weigman doesn't really have the time to really let plays develop. And you also have to think they lost Evan Stewart as well. I think that's going to weigh on them pretty heavy. So, and that's not to say that all of this is going to happen, but if it does, I could see a world where they're both down at the bottom of the division or bottom of the conference, and they're looking at each other like, how the hell did we get here? So I would definitely have Auburn at 9.
Yeah, I've got A&M. Like I said, they're interchangeable. So I've got A&M. I really want to see A&M, how they respond to not having Jimbo. I think Elko knows that culture enough, but he's more structured for what it's worth. I think he won't allow some of the stuff, right, that allow, because if you go back and listen to the news and stuff, while Jimbo was there, a lot of it was so much, it was so toxic. I think Elko nips that in the butt and just, you know what I mean? I think you see him build something there at A&M. So, that's where I'm at there. All right, number 8 might surprise some folks. Do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
You go ahead.
I have Oklahoma at my 8.
100%. 100%. And I can see how. New schedule, new quarterback, new conference. You're gonna be.
They got the hard. Listen, they got the harder schedule of the 2 new schools.
They sure did. Far. They sure did.
Because you hosting. Let's think about this. You're hosting. Was it Alabama? The week before the end of the season.
And
you're
then at the end of
Alabama.
And then at the end of the season, you got to go to Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. Listen, I think defensively.
And then you're playing, you got to keep in mind too, it's not just about the teams that you're playing, it's also about when you're playing them. You're going to be playing Alabama at the end of the season, when they have everything situated with Kalen DeBoer. That offense and that defense is going to be somewhat cohesive by the end of the season. Plus, you also have Chip Kelly along with the LSU Tigers. They're going to have everything situated with Nussmeier by the end of the season. They're going to be rolling full steam. They're going to be understanding how their defense and everything is going to roll now that they have a new DC with Brandon Baker. Am I correct? So straight from Missouri. So I think this is, if you lose against Texas and you lose against maybe A&M or a Missouri, you're looking at week 9, looking up at the world and saying, oh shit, we still got to play LSU and Bama?
Adrian, I love you.
Oh, yeah.
I hope somebody clips that.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. Sorry. Number 7, Keon, I'm going to let you go first, man.
So that was your number 8, correct?
Yes, correct.
Number 7, I'm going to put, I agree with you completely with Oklahoma. I could see, just like everything I said, I could see it all kind of falling apart for him in that stint. Not to say that it will, but boy, you're coming into a new conference. You're coming into a new conference with probably a top 5 hardest, I'll say top 3 hardest schedule in the conference.
You could argue easily top 5 for no debate.
Yeah, like you can't disagree with that. So while still playing Texas, while still playing Missouri, while still playing A&M, while still playing, like, you have games on your schedule, and they are hitting you with everybody that's not named Georgia on your schedule. So I think it's just one of those ones you gotta kind of have to look at. But I got Oklahoma at 7.
No. Oklahoma is your 8. Here, I'll read them off.
Wait, my bad. I got Oklahoma at 8.
Yes.
My 7.
Hold on, Keon. Hold on. Before we start, because we are technically halfway through.
Yeah.
Let's recap the first half first, or the 16-8. Then we're going to go 7-1.
Okay.
So at 16, Keon, you have Vanderbilt. I have Vanderbilt as well. 15, Keon has Florida. I have Mississippi State. At the 14, Mississippi State for Keon, Arkansas for me. 13, Arkansas for Keon, Florida for me. 12, South Carolina for both. 11, Kentucky for both. 10, Texas A&M for Keon, Auburn for myself. 9, Auburn for Keon, Texas A&M for myself. And 8, Oklahoma for both. That is your bottom half recap. Now we move to the top half. Keon, 7th. Who is the 7th highest SEC team in your power ranking?
I got Tennessee. I got Tennessee coming in. I think with Nico, he's going to have a little bit of growing pains early. Yet again, new quarterback. Yet again, he's been with the team. Don't get it confused. But a full season of him getting out there and getting going with adding new guys into the schedule as well. I think he's going to see a little bit of competition there.
I have concerns over this. I know this sounds crazy, but Missouri's schedule is extremely easy. But the quarterback position, who did they get from the quarterback? Because I felt like they got somebody from the portal, didn't they?
I thought they still had Cook.
If I don't know.
I thought they still had Cook.
They may have. They may have.
I don't think he's leaving.
Okay, so if he's there, okay, cool. I'm going Tennessee at 7. Nico, first year starting quarterback, right? A lot of hype there, but they do have a somewhat difficult schedule too. First year quarterbacks always scare you a little bit. You know what I mean? So that's just how I'm going to be on that one. But Tennessee at 7 for both. Number 6. This is where it gets interesting, Keon, because there's a lot of ways for this to go.
Yeah, this is really where it gets.
I've got Missouri at my 6. And that may sound crazy while they've got an easy schedule. I just have to look what's ahead. That's just my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Well, who's your 6?
I think for me, when I look at 6, I could see Missouri being there, me personally. To me, 6, I have to put Missouri. I think with their scheduling, you have to also keep in mind they play Ole Miss, LSU, and I believe Bama this year. They might play all 3. I know they play 2 out of the 3 for a fact. I know Bama's on their schedule.
Yeah.
So I could see that being a very difficult run for them. I think putting them at 6 is honestly the best place for them. Now, 5 is where it's going to get really crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because 5.
I think you're overthinking it.
Who's 5 to you?
LSU. Breaking it. They don't have Jaden Daniels. They don't have Malik Neighbors. And they got to hope that the defense gets better. So there's an argument that Missouri could be 5 and LSU at 6, considering schedules too.
No. Well, I think 5th, honestly, for LSU is truly a worst case scenario.
Who's your 5 then? I think I know who you're about to say.
Who do you think I'm about to say?
You're about to say Ole Miss. You're thinking it.
I really am. Because here's why I'm really thinking about it. Because I think Ole Miss has the easiest schedule in the conference outside of Texas. I think Texas has one of the easiest schedules in the conference. They only play us and Oklahoma and Michigan, who's going to be – they're not going to be the Michigan team we just watched in the Natty. So let's be clear there.
Yeah.
I think Ole Miss we're the only tough team they play, as far as I'm concerned. Us and LSU.
Yeah.
I think anybody else that they play this year, outside of Georgia and maybe LSU, they're gonna beat them. I know they ain't beating us. They might beat That's the thing. They might actually beat LSU.
So who's your 5? You never answered.
Yeah, I know. Geez. That 5th spot, I'm gonna put Ole Miss.
You're putting
I'm
Ole
gonna
Miss?
put Ole Miss. I'm gonna put Ole Miss because The reason why I want to put a Ole Miss right there and say that they're not going to be better than LSU is because of the DC and the changes that we saw LSU make this offseason. And I think those things are going to aid them very well. For anybody that's heard me speak, whether it be here or on X about LSU, I think they have the talent. I thought their problem was coaching. I thought that was the biggest issue. And 12-team playoff, you might as well count LSU in.
I think that's fair, right? So you've got Ole Miss at the 5, and I've got LSU. Well, I'm going to flip mine and say Ole Miss at my 4, and I'm assuming LSU will be your 4. Or could it be something else? Doom doom.
I'm going to put LSU at my 4.
LSU at the 4. Okay. And I have Ole Miss at the 4. Which leaves us to the 3 spot.
Who do you got?
I have Texas at the 3.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to let you pick first. And I want to hear yours first before I make any kind of judgment and logic why.
For my 4?
No. Who's your 3?
My 3 is Alabama.
Alabama. I'm assuming it's everything that's happened.
100%. From losing Nick Saban, from losing the best player on your team, to losing your center, to losing your right tackle, your quarterback's blind side.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think there's the S3 and 3 is that flex point. The top five, I think 4 and 3 could arguably be. I was expecting you to maybe even throw Bama to the 4, but the uncertainty of the new defensive staff, right? We saw what they did at Missouri. We expect them to what they're going to do with LSU, but it hasn't been proven yet, so it's still unknown. The reason why I put Texas there, I just feel like Texas does have an easy schedule for what it's worth.
100%.
I'm curious to see how things go when they play the gauntlet of the SEC. Now, listen, I understand that you're going to have teams, like you're going to have bad SEC teams as well. Okay,
100%.
But the question is, when you play them week in and week out, and it's consistently and it's just a physical grind, it's gonna test you. And Sark has the experience in the SEC.
Sure does.
From a coaching perspective. So, to your point, I think Texas and Alabama are very interchangeable for what it's worth. So the reason, again, you picked Alabama at the 3, at your 3 spot. I picked Texas, which obviously leaves us to the 2 spot. I chose Alabama at 2. The reason for me, I just need to see what happens, right? Like, I just need to see. Like, I know you lose Saban. I know what you've lost. But I'm not going to take out the fact that you have an opportunity in the post-spring transfer portal window to go ballistic. And they very well could.
That sounds good.
So I'm leaving. Obviously, listen, we know that it is February 7th, the year of our Lord 2024. We have not hit the second transfer portal window, right? I am banking on the fact that Alabama goes berserk in that. And I think there's going to be some interesting players that, that they didn't have the opportunity to go after. If you might add, listen, hey, you know what happened up there at Michigan with all those with Harbaugh pulling all them staffs members off? Yeah, watch Bama be calling. Hell, watch Bama be calling for some Georgia players. They're gonna be calling around. We know this. It's just a matter of who they bring in because they've got to. So I have Alabama because I think if they play Milroe, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt as well, just to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's we know it's February, so listen, we know this shit's gonna change. Okay, but what I'll tell you, what won't change, Keon, is that them dogs is on top right now at the one spot.
So for me, I got Texas at the 2.
Yep.
I think it's very clear moving forward. I think them being able to go on not even really go on the road because their schedule is so favorable. Most of their important games, damn near all of them, are all going to be at home.
Yeah, which doesn't
Texas is
bode
going
well
to.
for you next year, though, hypothetically.
No, not at all. But as far as this upcoming season, I got Texas at 2. I think they're a strong 2. I think that there is a real potential, a serious potential of us playing Texas twice. However you want to look at it, I see that. I think the thing that has me putting Bama at 3, and honestly, I had to really battle that because just looking at how everything's gone for them, the people that they lost, the fact that you're starting to see different reports and stuff come out that they're not necessarily sure on Milroe. What happens if Milroe isn't the starter? He hits the portal. If he hits the portal, that's the leader of the team. That's the only leader left on the team. If he hits the portal, who's to say that Ohio State doesn't come calling again for Keon Keeley? Who's to say that they don't send Caleb Downs and say, hey, man, come to the school that you were supposed to be at anyway? Who's to say that?
Never know.
Yeah, right. Bama has the opportunity to go crazy in the portal. I'm not denying that, but cool. That's cool. That's fine. You have a new head coach over there who's new to the conference, not necessarily well equipped when it comes to being on the trail getting defensive players. So there's that. I think right here, right now, I think Sark is more prepared to come into this conference and to be in a position to dominate than Alabama currently is. I don't think it's a crazy thing for me to say, especially since he's coached in this conference before under Nick Saban, of course, at Alabama.
Yeah.
You got Texas coming over here and they throwing the wallets around, man. Shit finna get weird.
Yep, we'll see. And obviously, number one, that obviously leaves Georgia for both.
Oh, 100%. Dogs on top. There ain't no question. We still, everything I just said, keep it all in mind, of course. But make no mistake, we still winning the conference. Ain't shit changed but the date.
At this point in time, I think with what Georgia's returned, with what, even the schedule, right? Looking forward to the schedule, I think Georgia set themselves up not only from who returned, the key returns, but the class and the consistent recruiting. I think you set yourself up, to have the depth necessary. Even in the hostile environments, you've got experience where you need it, right? And in the places and the positions that are needed the most, the experience is there. Obviously, no team is perfect, right? I think right tackle is going to be very interesting, but at the same time, you also have Xavier Truss, which you never know. I think you see him and Monroe Freeling battle it out. My preference is, I think Freeling. I think Freeling has a very, very high ceiling and a very high potential for success as a Georgia offensive lineman. But Truss is very experienced, and we know that Truss is better at tackle than he is, in my opinion, than guard. So, and if you want to experience, obviously you've got Ernest Green over at the left. You've got Tate Ratledge there, right, at the right guard to help Freeling if he does so win that position. And Xavier Truss has all the experience in the world. So you have all the positions, I think, secured. I think there are questions again. What is the receiving passing game going to look like? But as long as Carson Beck is there, and if he does the same thing and progresses even further, you have to feel confident enough to put Georgia as number one. And I think you could argue that it's at this point, fairly sizable gap too.
Yeah, I think it's not only just a sizable gap. We have the best returning quarterback in the conference. We have the best running back room in the conference.
I forgot about ET. I didn't bring up ETN. That's
yeah,
another
we
thing.
have the best running back room in the conference, best offensive line in the conference. It's so many things that add to us being number one outside of us just being fans. I mean, you can look at it, break it. I mean,
you got the best head coach in the game.
We have the best head coach in the country. Fuck the conference, the country.
Yeah.
Well, Harbaugh was asking people who got it better than us. Fucking nobody.
There you go. All right, Keon, let's recap this before we lock our rankings in. So I'm going to read yours off first, okay? From 16 down to 1. At 16, Vanderbilt.
Yep.
15, Florida.
Yep.
14, Mississippi State. 13, Arkansas. 12, South Carolina. 11, Kentucky. 10, Texas A&M. 9, Auburn. 8, Oklahoma. 7, Tennessee. 6, Missouri. 5, Ole Miss. 4, LSU. 3, Alabama. 2, Texas, and then Georgia at the 1. Are you locking yours in?
100%. Mail it in.
All right, we're confirming. No flips now, Keon. No turning back.
Flips. No flips. No Dylan Raiolas in this top 10.
No turning back. All right, here's mine from 16 to 1. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Florida, South Carolina, Kentucky, Auburn, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama, and Georgia on top. Dogs on top. Keon, any final thoughts, man, as we wrap this show up with the rankings?
Yet again, take the time, follow both of us on social medias. You can follow me on X, aka Twitter, at Podcast Poppy, and stay up to date with more Georgia stuff, more Georgia conversations. We'll be hosting spaces immediately right after the show. You want to come in and pop in and talk to us, definitely feel free. Yet again, follow us, stay tuned, and most importantly, go Dogs, man. Yeah, go Dogs, baby.
For what it's worth, with the so we're trying to implement new things and spice up content as well. So if you've noticed through the live portions of the show, you've seen maybe go to once a week. We're working on new ways to get more content, not only from live content like this right here, which will also be audio podcast content as well. We're looking at trying to incorporate social media, right? Catching up with whatever you want to talk about, right? Keon mentioned spaces, right? Make sure to follow us on the Bird app or X, whichever one you prefer. If you follow us, you'll see when we have or when we're hosting a space, whether it be Keon or myself on the DGD Podcast Twitter account. Listen, that is your way to come in and talk to us, just like we're talking right now, right? To you. You can do that. You can talk to us. And we encourage that, actually, right? We encourage that. So we've actually taken place of one of our normal shows the last couple of weeks and implemented that to get and to do some really fun conversations. So make sure whether you're listening or you're watching to make sure you're following, and because you'll stay up to date with the show, you'll catch notifications, announcements for the show, and go from there, and it just builds from there. If you're wondering where Juan and Kobe are, need not worry, folks. We're working on some new stuff for them too.
100%.
With the Showtime being what it is right now, listen, nobody wants to hear it, but the one and only. He's in his 50s, okay? So we're working on the situation for him to get him maybe even his own show. Maybe.
You want to have a one-on-one.
One-on-one, yeah. Go one-on-one with the great one. You know what I mean?
Great White Buffalo.
Yes. Yeah. Great White Buffalo. But no. So make sure. I urge you to do that, because that way you can stay up to date with the content. You stay up to date with everything, right? Everything regarding the shows, right? The content, the podcast, everything. That is the main source. So make sure you do that, if anything. And it's also in the description below. And for podcast listeners, you can also find them there as well. Other than that, though, make sure to like if you like what you're seeing. Like, follow, right? Subscribe, right? Ring the bell, guys. Ring the bell, right? We do it after a victory in Athens. What better way to do it right now? Like, just do it now. Like, now.
Right
now.
Right now. Wait. Right now.
Now. Yep, now. Do that. Also, make sure if you're listening on podcast, leave us a review. Let 100%. Us know. Be honest. Be honest. Okay.
Yeah. Tell us the truth.
Preacher telling the truth that it hurts. Yeah.
Tell us.
You hear me?
You hear me? Dogs on top.
Now, Keon, we did have dogs on top, but to all these other 15 programs in the SEC and to anyone out there in the country, in the world of college football, if you ain't dogs, what do they need to know?
Your team is trash and you have to deal with that. You hear me?
That's all we've got. Have a great night, folks. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. You hear me?